This evening, wanted to deal with I think a general topic that covers many parshiot in Sefer Breshit. Specifically, it covers a lot of Parsha Vayechi, and it's a general discussion about Binyamin and discussion about a lot of things that happens within the Psukim to understand many questions. And some of the questions we're going to answer, as we mentioned before, is number one, what's so special about Binyamin that he gets the Beit HaMikdash in his chelek? That's question number one that will not in chronological order where we try to answer it. Number two, as we'll read the Psukim, a lot of his birth is very difficult to understand, a lot of the Psukim, but I think we're going to try to understand them. Number three will be Kever Rachel. We know it's Baderech. We know, and the Psukim, which we'll learn, it's in this week's Parsha also. We'll try to figure out, a lot of people, is it just by chance that it happens to be Baderech? We'll see the Psukim inside. We'll see those Psukim also, that pasuk specifically inside with all the Mefarshim. Is it just by chance that, what's the reason she's Baderech? You know, we all know the Midrash that she's there so she can be davening for us. Let's read the Psukim inside. Let's see what it's about. And I think through this we're going to get a full mahalach to understand Binyamin and Kever Rachel and hopefully a whole mahalach of Chaim. So let's start out already in Leidat Binyamin in Perek Lamed Hey. I asked you to read the Psukim to see Perek Lamed Hey, Psukim Tet Zayin through Chaf. And I think there are a lot of difficult questions. We won't go through every single one in depth, but we will go through a lot of it. Okay, Pasuk Tet Zayin, it says, Vayisumi Beit El, Vayi od kivrat ha'aretz lavo Efrata, Vateled Rachel, Vatekash belidita. So they traveled from Beit El, Vayi od kivrat ha'aretz. Here, a lot of people have difficulty. What does this kivrat ha'aretz mean? Does it mean, as the Chizkuni and Rashi says, kivrat comes from the language of riboy? You have a long way to go. It was a long way to go, and therefore Bateled Rachel, because she didn't get to Efrat because there was Kivrat Ha'aretz. There was a long way to go. And a nice piece, the Ramban here, I don't know if you got to it, quotes these Mefarshim, and I showed you the concept. He said Zeh Katafti Tchila. If you skip a couple of sources, he says this is what I had said, that it's a far way. But then he said, very interestingly enough, that the Ramban, when he got to Eretz Yisrael, he measured it and he saw it wasn't so long. He said, "Zeh katavti tchila, but ba'achshav shezachiti uvati ani liyushalayim shevach le'el atov u'meiti ra'iti be'inai she'ein min kfurat Rachel." To Beit Lechem, if I have to measure the difference between Kever Rachel and Beit Lechem, it's not even a meal. It's not so long. So it can't be v'nei huchash ha'perush hazeh v'gam divrei Menachem, which had said about Lashon Riboy. And he gives a different interpretation of what it means, Vinir Be'inai, later on, which we'll see. So, that in itself is difficult. What's the message of Vayi od kivrat ha'aretz levo Efrata? But specifically, what I'm focusing on is Vateled Rachel Vatekash lidita. So it tells me that she becomes pregnant, and Vatekash lidita. Okay, so she had a difficult pregnancy. But then, Pasuk Zayin, Vayihi Hakshota belidita, vatomer la miyaledet al tiri ki gam zelach ben. Let's just read all the psukim and we'll ask the questions. Vahi betzeit nafsha ki meta, vatikra shmo ben oni, vaviv karolo Binyamin. Vatamat Rachel vatikaver b'derech Efrata hi Beit Lachem. Vayatzav Yaakov matzeva kfurata hi matzevet kfurat Rachel arayom. So as after we first read the first pasuk, the sefer of the first pasuk says that she had a difficult pregnancy. Then we start pasuk Zayin. Pasuk Zayin, I believe the whole pasuk says, like, what's going on here? Vayhi b'hakshota belidita. So what's the problem with that already? Just said it. Okay, so maybe you want to be midayeket or midayek a little bit more in the Hebrew. Vayhi b'hakshota belidita. I mean, how it's even more. What is that? B'hakshota belidita means what? It's not only what is it difficult, but so she's
making
effect. Right? It's causative. It's like she's making it even more difficult. Right? You never want to blame the pregnant woman. Right? But here it's ki'ilu, she's however, whatever that means, but obviously there's a tremendous emphasis in the Torah here that the pregnancy is really hard, to the point almost like there's a heavy emphasis about the koshi of her leidah here, which I don't think we've seen, right? We've seen, if I think about it now, if we talk about the avot and imahot, we all know that we talk about the barrenness, if you will, or the akrut of our imahot. As we know, the Gemara talks about midnei ma, why, the Gemara in Yevamot says, why were our matriarchs have difficulty of pregnancy to teach? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mit'aveh b'tfilatan shel avot v'imahot, etc. Right? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wanted our tefillot. But if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm wrong because I just thought about it now, but I think I'm right, is if you look at Sarah and you look at Rivka, it doesn't talk about the difficulty of the pregnancy as much. Could be wrong, but I think I'm right. Right? We know at the beginning of with Adam and Chava, we talk about the difficulty of the pregnancy. Does it talk about it? What does it say? Okay, but that's specific. Vayitrodzu abanim b'kirba. That's a specific. It doesn't specifically say about it. It says imayin kimeta anochi. Right? Right. So it's a little different. See there, imayin kimeta anochi. There, right. So by Rivka, it talks about. She feels like there it's a little different focus. There it's like, one second, there's something going on over here, right? There's some sort of battle royal going on here between these two creations inside of me, right? Shnei goyim b'bitnech. Here the emphasis is like just the etzem pregnancy is difficult, as opposed to the general difficulty of becoming pregnant. So what is that all about? I think it's bedafka. Furthermore, in this pasuk Yud Zayin, vatomer la hamiyaledet. Al tiri ki gam zelach ben. So what is this all about? So this midwife tells her in the middle of this difficult pregnancy, don't worry, this is also going to be a boy. Like simple pshat is like, what's going on? Like what is this miyaledet trying to do? Right? Is she sexist? All she wants is a boy, maybe Svardi, banim scharim. Right? What's really going on here? Right? Al tiri ki gam zelach ben. So you could say a simple pshat. Could very well be, for example, like the Malbim could give a nice simple pshat, which means she says to him, don't worry, because of the difficulty of the pregnancy, what does she think? That maybe there's going to be a stillborn, maybe there's going to be some sort of pagam in the baby, so she's assuring the Ima, no, gam zelach ben, it's going to be a ben kayama, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, that would be the Malbim's pshat. But picking up on the Sforno, I want to pick up a little bit more of a different pshat also. That there's something fundamentally different between a nekeva and a zachar. The Sforno brings up shaya yeled nekeva minei shehachavalim merubim. Right, talks about that the tremendous amount of contractions. Chavlei nekeva merubim mishal zachar gemara nida ki gam zelach ben afa pisha chavala merubim. Don't worry, gam hu zachar. What is this about? I want to look at it on a deeper level. What this pshat is. If we keep going on, there is a Malbim's pshat also, which we're not going to deal with now. Which is nice, but we can look at it in your own time, please. Pasuk Yochet. Vayi b'tzeit nafsha ki meta vatikra shmo ben oni vaviv karolo Binyamin. So here again, the question is, all the Mefarshim deal with the problem of Vayi b'tzeit nafsha kimeta and then vatikra shmo, meaning if she's dead, right? She's not like calling out, sending a fax from the dead, right? We don't believe in that, right? Or most of us hopefully don't believe in that, right? What is Vayi b'tzeit? So again, I'm not going to deal with that specific point, but Vayi b'tzeit nafsha kimeta, she dies, or while she's dying, we'll say that as a simple pshat. Then vatikra shmo ben oni vaviv karlo Binyamin. So you read this pasuk, and you think, what's going on here? Is this a tit for tat? Right? This is a husband and wife. Literally, like, what is he callous? Right? He's callous. She's calling him a name. Like, oh, what's wrong with you? She's dying. Right? Give the dying woman, her last wish. You know what I'm saying? Are you that callous? Right? Hello, Anochi. I'm better than Asara. Is that chas v'shalom? Like, what's going on here? You read this pasuk on a very simple level. It seems to be there's some sort of tug of war about whether it's Ben Oni or Binyamin. And we'll go into that in 1 second. And then, as we say, Vatamat Rachel Vatikaver Baderech Efrata Hi Beit Lachem. Why couldn't have just said Vatamat Rachel Vatikaver? It says Baderech Efrata Hi Beit Lachem. Vayatzev Yaakov Matzeva Kfurata Hi Matzev Kfurata. This is what's called Kever Rachel Ad Hayom. So, just to answer that last question, we already started to. I want to continue to try to answer the emphasis of the difficulty of the pregnancy. That's number one I really want to emphasize on. Number two, I want to understand, maybe taking the Sforno another level of understanding what was the Meyaledes trying to affirm or Menachem or Menachemet Rachel here by saying Kigam Zelach Bein. Finally, I want to really understand, or two other things, but what is this Ben Oni versus Binyamin? So here, I asked you, I forgot to cut and paste over here, but already if you skip to page 4, right, what is Ben Oni versus Binyamin? It's seemingly, right, the Ramban, the last source of page 4, the Ramban says, what's Ben Oni? Already quoting from Rashi also. Ben Oni versus Binyamin. What's Ben Oni? From the language of Aninut. Ben Oni is Ben Sa'ari, right? She's talking about my pain. She's in that psychological state at that point. It's the son of my pain. It's the son of my mourning, as the Ramban said, versus, what does he say? Ben Yamin, right? He's the son of my strength, right? Yamin always being in Chazal, the son of strength, and that's what the Ramban says, right? Vanachon be'inai ki imo karato ben oni v'ratzta lomar ben aveli milechem onim, or lo chalti ve'oni in Parsha Ki Tavo. V'aviv asa min oni kochi. Milashon Reishit Oni, which is we see by Reuven, Ule'ein Onim, where I'm powerless, but the concept of Oni is Koach. V'lachein Karato Binyamin, Ben HaKoach or Ben HaChozek, right? Literally, it seems to be the antithesis, right? She's focusing on her sad status on a certain level, and he somehow is dealing with Binyamin, right? Ki Yamin is bo hagvura b'atzlacha, the Ramban says. Kinyan shekatuv leiv chacham limino yimincha timsa l'chol sonecha, etc., etc. So again, you could learn it, and the Ramban continues. If you look at it, ratzal liyot korei oto b'shem sherakarato imo ki ken kol banav b'shem shekaru oto imotam yikru v'ni tirgem oto l'tova l'gvura. So the simple pshat in the Ramban is that like he tried to connect, kvetch, to try to make it into something positive. So what I'd like to think about again is there really a tug of war between the two, or maybe somehow the Ben Oni and the Binyamin are actually very much complementary. Within that, the Al-Shich, for example, says again, what is going on here? On one level, the Al-Shich says that when a child is born to your family, it's a siman tov for the mishpacha. Right? When someone dies in your family, he says, Tida'ag l'kol mishpacha. If you look at the Al-Shich side. So on a certain level, she's focusing on, quote unquote, the negative, and he's focusing on the positive. Is that what's going on? Is there something more going on? The final question which we want to deal with is, again, what we asked, is it just by chance that it's Baderech Efrata? So to try to answer up these 4 questions all together, let's look at, back to page 1, let's look at the bracha in this week's parsha of Binyamin to understand what Yaakov was saying about Binyamin. And within that, we'll try to answer up the 5th question, which we asked earlier about Beit HaMikdash Bechelek Shel Binyamin. It says in Breshit Perek Memtet Pasach Chav Zayin, what Yaakov in the middle of his brachot says, Binyamin Ze'ev Yitraf, Babochel Yochal Ad V'la'erev Yichalek Shalal. There are a lot of mefarshim. What is this referring to? We know the brachot, it's machlokas, whether it's just a bracha, nivuah, right? So Rashi, for example, if you look at the sources in page 2, if you got to them, right, the Ze'ev might be referring to the Pilegish Begiva incident of a Zeb that prays, just like they prayed, V'chataftem lachem ishu v'isho, Shoftim, chapters 19 to 21, right? It also is a good prophecy on Shaul, that he was strong and he was the first Jewish king and he was minatzeach all of his oivim.